And welcome to this session on why you freeze when you need to set boundaries. My name's Chris Hallett, and a warm welcome to you. And you might have had those difficult conversations. We've all had them as business owners. The one where the client says, "And how much is this going to cost me?" Or just somebody says, "What's the price of your services?" And you've rehearsed it in your head dozens and dozens of times. You know exactly what you're going to say. You've done the work and written down the value of your offer. And then that moment arises, particularly if you're doing a sales presentation or you're sat one-to-one with a client. You open your mouth and you freeze. And the words disappear and your throat tightens and you hear yourself agreeing to things that you know you would never agree to outside of that meeting, and you leave the conversation feeling like you've failed again. I'm Chris Hallett, and I've spent 35 years in corporate IT before going into business as a consultant, and then as a trainer of NLP and a coach. And I've had hundreds of those difficult conversations, whether it be telling a client that a project's going to be late or over budget, because inevitably with clients, they do take longer than the plan says. They do generally cost more because no one can predict the future. And particularly with sales conversations, I can remember the first sales meetings that I went to and being asked the price, and I almost sort of shied away from telling people how much it was going to cost them to employ me. And this is why it matters so much, because every time you have a difficult conversation, something gets compromised, your boundaries get crossed. You may be unclear about your expectations. Your client takes more than they should from you, and the resentment builds. Your client says, "And can you add this in? And can you do this?" And what you're doing is you're compromising your own values and your own boundaries. This isn't about being nicer or accommodating. This is survival. Your business can't grow unless you're able to have those difficult conversations and stay in control of them. Your leadership can't develop when you're avoiding feedback, and you can't live to your values when you're saying yes to things that contradict them. And that freeze response is costing you. Ooh, it's costing me as well. So why do you actually freeze? Well, what's going on is things are going on at an unconscious level. You're a business leader, you have a purpose in mind, and you've built your business to make a difference, and you care deeply about people, your value, your authenticity, your integrity. And yes, you need to make money to survive and to build the business and to do all the things that you want to do. Those aren't just nice words on your website. They're about who you are. They're what's at the core of you, your vision, mission, and purpose. So when difficult conversations arise, your unconscious mind runs a rapid calculation, and it goes something like this. If I'm honest and truthful about what I'm really worth and what I believe I'm worth, then the client might say no. He might ask me, or they might ask me to deliver even more within that price. And they might think that I'm just after the money. And that contradicts who I am. If I set this boundary with the client, they might leave. They might not come back to me. They might go elsewhere. And if they leave, my business suffers. And if the business suffers, I've failed in my mission. That calculation happens in milliseconds, and it happens unconsciously. You don't even think about it. And it's an unconscious pattern that your unconscious mind runs. It's not a weakness. It's your unconscious mind trying to protect you from what it perceives as danger. And that's the problem. It's protecting you from the wrong thing. So we have two minds. We have the conscious mind that is the one where we think, we make decisions. And the conscious mind can pay attention to roughly 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information a second. The unconscious mind can pay attention to millions. So what our mind does is it filters, deletes, and distorts. And so one of the roles of our unconscious mind is to act like our big brother that looks out for you and protects you. And it's protecting you from potential conflict whilst exposing you to actual harm. And that harm or resentment is building. So here's why traditional solutions don't work. Most people think they can overcome this through willpower. They tell themselves to be braver, to stand up straight. They read books about difficult conversations. They practice their script one more time. They go back to their value proposition. And none of that works long time because willpower operates at a conscious level, and that freeze response is operating at an unconscious level. You're trying to think your way out of the problem that lives in your body. You're trying to override your unconscious programming from years and years with a conscious effort. And it's exhausting and fails when you need it most. What you really need is an unconscious solution to an unconscious problem. And that's what I'm going to teach you today. Because in the next 10 minutes or so, what I'm going to show you is how you can reprogram your unconscious response to difficult conversations, not manage it, not override it, but actually reprogram it. And there's a difference between fighting yourself every time a difficult conversation appears and having a new automatic response that serves you instead of sabotaging you. So the technique I'm going to teach you is straight out of the NLP playbook, the NLP practitioner training, and it's called the Circle of Excellence. And it's an excellent state management tool, and it's a technique that's called anchoring. So let's just have a look at state management for a moment. Your emotional state determines your behavior. So when you're in a confident state and relaxed, you communicate clearly. And when you're in a fearful place, you freeze and you might build up some resentment and you avoid those difficult conversations. And you see how my physiology shifted from those two states. When you're confident, your body is more erect, you're more purposeful, and you speak with clarity. And this is how our mind works, is when we're the complete opposite, maybe somebody says something to you, your client says to you, how much? Do you really expect me to pay that? We physiologically, we shrink because our unconscious mind processes that information and creates a physiology within us and changes our state. So the more we can control our emotional state, the more we're in control of those difficult situations. And you can learn to trigger those resourceful states on demand instead of waiting for them to appear accidentally. It's called anchoring. So an anchor is a specific trigger that activates a specific state. And you have anchors operating in your life every day. You might be attracted to a certain smell. You might be attracted by a particular song, and it creates up, it reminds you of the first time that you met your loved one, your first date, or perhaps the moment your first child was born. And those are positive anchors, but there are also negative anchors. And one of the most common ones is you're driving down the road, happily going along, perhaps to go and do the shopping, and you hear a siren and you see the blue light in your reverse mirror, your rear view mirror, and you think, what speed am I doing? Am I within the speed limit? Am I in the right lane? What have I done? What have I done? That's a negative anchor because we're anchored onto that trigger, which is the blue light and the siren going. So the Circle of Excellence creates a conscious anchor, and you can deliberately install that anchor and trigger it to activate that resourceful state when you need them. In this case, before a difficult conversation, particularly in sales and pricing. So the Circle of Excellence, the Circle of Excellence is a physical space you create that becomes anchored to those resourceful states. And when you step into that circle, you access whatever you've defined: confidence, clarity, capability. You load the circle with 3 powerful memories of times when you felt completely resourceful, and you stack the states on top of each other. And I'm going to teach you how to do this. And then you practice firing the anchor and stepping into the circle to access the states. Eventually, you can just imagine stepping into the circle, which triggers the state you want. So you don't need the physical circle anymore, because my guess is if you're in sales conversations, you might be doing it on Zoom and you can't actually physically get up and move. The client might think that's a bit odd. You can do it if you're doing a sales presentation, but if you're sat down in a meeting with somebody, it's a bit difficult to then step into that circle. So what makes this different is that this isn't just positive thinking. You're not trying to convince yourself to feel confident whilst your unconscious mind screams, "Whoa, danger!" You're installing a new automatic response at an unconscious level. And this isn't willpower. It's not forcing you to be brave. You're accessing the states you've already experienced. And it isn't temporary. It's a permanent thing. So let's have a look at how you create the anchor. So I want you to think about a difficult conversation you need to have. It's usually around, if you're a business owner, it's usually around pricing and the value offer. And maybe it's a boundary with a client, but let's pick on the sales conversation and the pricing question. Okay, so once you've got one, what I want you to do is to choose 3 positive resource states that you want and you want to install every time you go into those conversations. So maybe it's totally resourceful, totally confident as a business leader, being in your power. So once you've got those states, write them down. I've got mine written down here, ready to demonstrate this. And then in front of you on the floor, just imagine and draw in the power of your mind and draw a circle on the floor that you can step into. So step outside of the circle, your imaginary circle, and remember the first moment. And this is where you bring your states. I'm going to use mine. So remember the first time that you were totally resourceful, totally confident, and stepping into your power and in your power. And bring back the memory of the first time. And if it helps, close your eyes and see what you saw in that moment and hear what you heard and feel what you felt and make the memory vivid. Notice the colors. If they were black and white, make them color, make them brighter. Notice the sounds, make the sounds clearer, louder. Notice the sensations in your body. Where do you feel the confidence physically? Is it in your chest, in your shoulders, in your core? Intensify it. And really inhabit that moment of being resourceful, totally confident and in your power. And when that feeling's at its peak, and when you're fully in that resourceful state, step forward into that circle, physically step into the circle. And as you step into it, say in your mind, this is my circle of excellence. In this circle, I am resourceful, totally confident, and in my power and capable. And stand there and feel the resourceful state anchored into this physical space. Your unconscious mind is making an association right now, and the circle equates to this state. And feel it fully, and feel the intensity of those states. And then step out of the circle and shake it off and walk away. And yeah, one of the things that always makes me feel hungry is the smell of fresh baked bread. So now we're going to repeat it again. So take the second of those states, totally confident. Stand out of the circle. And remember your second moment for your state. Remember a time when you were totally, totally confident. And see it vividly, hear it, feel it intensely, and make it peak. When it's at the maximum of intensity, step back into your circle of excellence. It's the same circle. And what we're doing now is layering the second resource state on top of the first. And as you step in and say again, this is my circle of excellence. In this circle, I am totally confident clear and capable. And feel both states now integrate together. The circle is becoming more powerful. You're teaching your unconscious mind that this physical space equals multiple resource states combined. And feel the intensity and feel it build and feel everything you need to feel as those states combine. And now step out and shake it off. And the other smell I love is the smell of bacon. I just love bacon, especially bacon and bread together. Wow. So now bring to mind that third memory of when you're in your power as a business leader. So now you've got 3 powerful resource states. And outside of the circle, bring to mind that memory, fully inhabit it outside of the circle, see what you need to see, hear what you need to hear, feel what you need to feel, and make that state, peak the intensity of it, and then step into the circle. And this time you've got 3 powerful resource states stacked in one physical anchor. The circle is now loaded with resourcefulness, total confidence in you, in your power. And stand there and notice the physiology changes that you experience, how your shoulders drop or lift, how your breathing changes, how your jaw relaxes, and how your spine straightens. Your unconscious mind is installing a new automatic response right now, and the circle has now 3 states. So now step out of the anchor and walk away and think about something completely different. What are you going to do tomorrow? It's Saturday tomorrow. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go watch football? Are you going to watch the kids? What are you going to do? Now think about that difficult conversation you need to have and notice what happens in your body. Do you feel the start of the freeze response, the tightness, the anxiety? Now step into your circle of excellence and notice what happens. Those resource states flood back automatically. The unconscious mind recognizes this physical space and triggers the state you've anchored there. You're no longer frozen. You're resourceful. You're confident. You're in your power. You're clear. You're capable. This is state management and how you reprogram your unconscious response to difficult conversations. Now, what we can do with that anchor is make it portable. So once the circle is strong, you can collapse it into something more subtle. So when you step into the circle next time, make a specific physical gesture. Touch a part of the body that you wouldn't normally touch. Maybe your nose, maybe your ear, or maybe you press your finger and thumb together. Do this several times as you step into the circle and make the gesture and feel those states. You're transferring the anchor from the circle to the gesture. So you can utilize that anytime you're going into a difficult conversation, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's face-to-face, and immediately I do it, I can feel those states triggering. So now you can fire that anchor anywhere. So next time you go into one of those difficult conversations, utilize that anchoring technique and trigger those states before you go into the meeting, before you sit down, before you start to speak, so that you can live those states of being resourceful, totally confident, and in your power. But of course, the alternative path is that you don't do this and you don't use them, and those difficult conversations will still trigger that stuck state, that freeze state that you had before. Now, this technique solves one specific problem, and it can be applied to many different single problems, i.e. difficult conversations when you're speaking with your team. It's powerful and it works immediately. And it's giving you a tool that you didn't have before. It's one piece of a much bigger picture. The circle of excellence manages those symptoms excellently. What might happen, and it happens with a lot of my clients, is there's actually a deep-seated limiting belief or a misappropriate negative emotion. And that's where timeline therapy comes in, because it enables us to release those limiting beliefs right at their root and not manage them. So it enables to reprogram our mind. And what NLP does is it gives us a communication framework that makes difficult conversations feel natural instead of difficult. In NLP training, you learn the precise language patterns that reduce defensiveness, build trust, build rapport, and enables us to communicate at a different level. And NLP is the bedrock of all of my training, whether it's public speaking, whether it is sales training. NLP is critical to the success of all of us as business leaders. And if you'd like to find out more about the different trainings I offer, we have a training course coming up in sales. It utilizes NLP, but this is about ethical sales. It's about how you build rapport with your client. It's about how you hold those sales meetings, have those difficult conversations, but ask the clients the appropriate questions to find out what their deep-seated needs are, and so that you can fulfill them. There'll be a link in the comments, and I welcome you to join me on a discovery call. If you're seeing this, you're probably connected with me on LinkedIn. So just reach out and it's free to talk, and let's have a conversation. There'll be another one of these trainings next week. And if there's a subject you'd like me to cover, then please drop that in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you next week.